to have you on Planetterrian Daily, episode 125, coming to you on July 19th, 2026. Let's see what the latest research is telling us. Fossils reveal a previously unknown marsupial order that persisted in Australia for 35 million years. Fossils from Queensland indicate a distinct marsupial lineage survived on the continent for roughly 35 million years. The find contradicts the long-held view of a single ancestral migration shaping all Australian marsupials. Researchers examined skeletal features that separate this group from known orders. The work reframes how continent-wide mammal radiations are reconstructed from fragmentary remains. Further fossil sites in the same region are now being re-examined for additional members of the order. Systematic comparison of additional Queensland sites will determine how widespread the order once was. Targeted re-examination of existing collections can still yield major taxonomic shifts when paleontologists apply updated morphological criteria. Yale and Columbia researchers released the Biennial Environmental Performance Index covering 180 countries. European nations occupy the top positions across air quality, sanitation, and biodiversity metrics. Few countries show trajectories consistent with 2050 net zero targets. Progress on several pollution and resource indicators has slowed since the prior report. The index supplies standardized benchmarks for national policy tracking. Southwest Florida Bloom research measured aerosolized microcystins and other compounds. Concentrations remain detectable at inland sampling sites distant from shorelines. The findings indicate inhalation exposure routes beyond direct water contact. Ongoing work quantifies particle size distributions and respiratory deposition estimates. Public health advisories may expand to include downwind communities. While cells actively defend their molecular machinery against heat, whole populations face rising heat-related mortality. Heat triggers rapid sequestration of splicing factors into transient nuclear bodies. The process reverses within minutes once temperature normalizes. The response was observed across multiple human cell lines. Blocking stress body formation prolonged splicing defects after heat shock. Right now, if your body temperature rises even a few degrees, splicing factors move into these bodies so RNA processing can resume once conditions normalize. These structures restore splicing within minutes after temperature returns to baseline, preventing widespread production of faulty proteins. Everyday heat exposure therefore triggers a rapid, reversible quality control system rather than permanent damage. Heat waves linked to excess deaths in England and Wales. Rapid analysis by LSHTM, Imperial College, and the Met Office attributed over 2,700 deaths to the May-June 2026 heat events. Daily mortality records were compared against historical baselines adjusted for population trends. The estimate covers only the 2-month period and does not include later indirect effects. Heat-related mortality was highest among older adults and those with pre-existing conditions. The report supplies data for refining heat health alert thresholds. A 41-author paper in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences outlines standardized VR protocols. The authors argue that immersive environments reduce uncontrolled contextual variables across labs. Replicable stimulus delivery and precise movement tracking are cited as core advantages. Pilot studies already demonstrate lower intersite variance than traditional setups. The group calls for shared VR stimulus libraries to accelerate adoption. Population-level heat impacts connect to individual behavioral resilience. A molecular winter lock prevents premature diapause exit in flies. Washington State University researchers identified a gene circuit that maintains reduced metabolic activity. The circuit prevents premature exit from diapause even when brief warm spells occur. Mutation of the key regulatory element caused flies to resume activity at inappropriate times. The mechanism may generalize to other seasonally responsive insects. Pest management strategies could exploit the pathway to disrupt overwintering survival. Chemists at Otto von Guericke University produced key fragments of neosorangicin A in the laboratory. The molecule occurs naturally and shows activity against resistant bacteria. The synthetic route allows targeted modification of the structure for improved stability. The team's approach relied on sequential coupling reactions to assemble the core scaffold. Scale-up and biological testing of analogs are now underway. University of Tokyo chemists engineered a polymer network that achieves high shear strength on low surface energy materials. The glue remains stretchable under load and releases cleanly with brief ethanol exposure. No residue remains after the alcohol wash step. The design separates adhesion from permanent surface modification. Applications in reusable electronics assembly and temporary medical fixation are being explored. From environmental timing cues in insects to how everyday diet may influence cellular aging markers in humans. Mediterranean diet linked to higher mitochondrial protective peptides. Older adults with closer adherence showed elevated circulating humanin and SH moose. These peptides have been associated with reduced cardiovascular and neurodegenerative risk. Olive oil, fish, and legumes contributed most strongly to the observed differences. Refined carbohydrate reduction also correlated with higher peptide concentrations. The findings suggest a mechanistic route through which diet may influence cellular aging. A Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona study surveyed 100 individuals in vulnerable situations. Participants described pets as sources of routine, affection, and motivation to maintain daily structure. The multidimensional assessment captured both psychological and practical dimensions of the bond. Loss of a pet was reported as a significant setback in several narratives. Service providers are examining ways to accommodate animals in housing programs. Georgia Tech undergraduates developed a practical tool to predict chemical concentrations after spills or open container events. The model incorporates ventilation rates, container geometry, and worker proximity. It was created inside a vertically integrated projects course on chemical equity. The tool aims to give communities faster estimates than current regulatory defaults. Field validation with local partners is the next planned step. Dietary patterns and cellular health lead naturally to questions about chemical exposures that may accelerate cognitive aging. High artificial sweetener intake tied to faster cognitive decline. Longitudinal data linked elevated consumption of common non-nutritive sweeteners with accelerated memory and executive function loss. The association was stronger in participants under age 60 and those with diabetes. Highest versus lowest intake corresponded to roughly 1.6 years of additional cognitive aging. Researchers noted that causation remains unproven and called for replication in independent cohorts. Dietary assessment relied on repeated food frequency questionnaires. Measurements from 225 infants revealed that boys with digit patterns indicating higher prenatal estrogen exposure had larger head circumferences. Head circumference is a reliable proxy for brain volume at birth. No parallel association appeared in girls. The pattern supports hypotheses that sex steroid exposure in utero contributes to sexual dimorphism in brain development. Larger cohorts will test whether the relationship persists into later childhood. A placebo-controlled study of 390 adults tested low-dose fluvoxamine against persistent fatigue. Participants on the drug reported lower fatigue scores and better quality of life measures than the placebo group. The trial is among the first to show a measurable benefit for this common long COVID symptom. Fluvoxamine's effect is thought to involve anti-inflammatory actions rather than its primary antidepressant mechanism. Larger follow-up studies are planned to confirm durability of the response. Next time, we'll be watching for results from larger follow-up studies on fluvoxamine for long COVID fatigue. That covers today's science and health news. Share this with someone who's curious about the latest research. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you next time. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NARA Network. Links in the show notes. This show comes to you from the NARA Network. If you want another sharp daily briefing, Environmental Intelligence has you covered. The Environment and Climate Policy Brief for Canada. All our shows are free at naranetwork.com. Prefer reading? Today's full write-up, sources, and transcript are on the episode blog at naranetwork.com. Same briefing, readable format. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.